He thought it was just another dusty old letter. But when this retired mailman finally delivered it, 40 years too late, it shattered a woman's world and sparked a national storm. What was inside that envelope changed everything. Would you open a letter from a past that never said goodbye? Stick around, this one will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Belle, before we dive in, tell us, have you ever held onto a letter you were too afraid to send? Drop it in the comments. And hey, don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this don't come in the mail every day. The old post office in Rosewood hadn't been used in over 2 decades. It was being cleared out for a bakery renovation when someone found a rusted metal box wedged behind a shelving unit. Inside were scraps of undelivered mail, junk, expired coupons, wrinkled envelopes, and one letter, perfectly sealed, stamped, addressed, postmarked, September 4th, 1985. Read. To Margaret and Whitmore. From Richard E. Barnes. And in red ink across the top. Please deliver immediately. But it never was. Harold Linley was 78. He had worked for 42 years as a postal worker. Now he lived alone in a small cottage on the edge of town, feeding birds and listening to old jazz on the radio. He didn't talk much. Didn't go out much. But the postmaster who found the letter called him up anyway. It's got your handwriting on the routing label. Harold came to see it. One look and his face froze. He held the letter like it was a newborn child. His hands trembled. I remember this, he said. It never got delivered. We had a flood that week. Some mail got misplaced. I boxed a few things to follow up, and then forgot. He stared at it for a long time. 40 years, he whispered. Then he stood up. I'm going to deliver it. Margaret and Whitmore still lived at the same address. She was in her 60s now. Lived alone. Had never married. She opened the door, confused at first. An old man in a vintage postal jacket, a bit too tight now, holding a yellowed envelope. Margaret Ann? Yes. This letter was meant for you. It's 4 decades late. She took the letter slowly, like it might shatter in her hands. Then she saw the name. Her knees nearly gave out. Richard, she whispered. He said he'd write before he flew out. I waited for weeks, then months, then I stopped. She opened it right there on the porch. Harold stood quietly. Maggie, if you're reading this, I guess the letter made it. I hope it did. Tomorrow I ship out. But there's something I need to say before I go. If I come back, I want to marry you. And if I don't, just know I loved you more than this life could ever explain. Richard, she was crying. So was Harold. He never came back, she said. Shot down over the ocean. No remains found. I waited for this. For him. Harold took off his cap. I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened. It doesn't matter, she said. It got here. That's all that matters. Margaret called a local radio station the next day. She didn't expect anything. But the story, a love letter delivered 40 years too late, exploded. National news picked it up. The New York Times ran it on the front page. A mailman's redemption, and the letter that waited a lifetime. TV crews came to town. Reporters interviewed Harold and Margaret. Veterans groups held vigils. Strangers wrote them letters of support. Harold started learning more about Richard Barnes. A young man. Pilot. Decorated posthumously. His name was on a memorial plaque. One Harold had walked past 1,000 times and never noticed. He visited it now every week. Left a white flower. And stood in silence. He felt like he had robbed a man of a final message. And yet, somehow delivered it just in time. Maybe the delay was meant to be, Margaret said one evening. Maybe I needed it now more than I did back then. Harold and Margaret began visiting schools. They spoke to students about handwriting, patience, and lost connections. They created a project. Letters That Wait, encouraging people to write one letter they'd never had the courage to send. It spread across the country. In 1 year, over 200,000 letters were written, sealed, and kept in envelopes with no date of delivery. Some would wait. Some would be opened. But all would matter. Harold had found a purpose again. And Margaret had found peace. A year later, Harold passed away quietly in his sleep. On his nightstand, a small box. Inside, an envelope addressed to Margaret. Dear Maggie, you taught me that even old hearts can be forgiven. That time doesn't erase meaning, it only sharpens it. Thank you for letting me deliver something bigger than a letter. Thank you for giving an old man one more mission. Yours, Harold. Margaret held that letter like she had held Richard's. And she smiled. They both found me, she said. One through war. The other through time. The old post office is now a small museum. Up front there's a bench, engraved in the wood. Some letters take longer to arrive, but the heart always delivers. Every year on September 4th people come to sit, read and write. Some bring old letters. Others bring flowers. A few just sit in silence. Because sometimes, a simple envelope, forgotten for 40 years, can become the most powerful message of all.